we were grad camping. This was grade 12.
Yeah.
And this guy just had a wiener stick that he was like heating up, and then he would put them on people. So he was being a jerk. So then,
Was that during Howard Hour? See how much pain you guys could take?
honestly, yeah. So then he just came up to me and he put it on my wrist, and now I have this little scar on my wrist.
But you remember it.
Yeah.
Land ahoy, mateys!
The archipelago awaits.
And then I looked on the floor, and there was an aura ring on the floor, and I'm like, what? Did I look? It wasn't on my hand anymore. Must have clipped it, right? Because it was so loose normally. Yeah. So anyways.
Nice,
So
nice.
I'm conscious of it, but it's not like a wristband that you have to wear and you can't. So when I'm sleeping, I don't notice it on or anything.
Yeah, I just had one because I got the ultra human one, so it's
Yeah.
kind of like the knockoff of
Yeah.
the Aura. I bought it
Yeah.
at Costco and I was
Yeah.
wearing it to bed. And the only thing I didn't like about it was it had to be tight.
Yeah.
Like for it to get a good reading on your heart rate, it had to
Yeah.
be tight. So I'm like, the only thing that I really care about right now is my sleep data.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like I want to actually be able to get access to that data
Yeah.
because those apps have it kind of closed in. Because for me, it's like if you don't wear that 24/7 and it's trying to say your calorie count, your readiness level,
Yeah.
all these different stuff, it's not going to work for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, it seems to pick up pretty good. And it's, well, I mean, obviously not so tight because it flew off the jacket, but yeah, no, it seems to, I like it.
Which is pretty nice because then you have to wear what, 5 weeks? Is that what it is?
I'd say 5 weeks. And
Yeah.
then what's supposed to happen then is then they got MRI data.
Mm,
They've got the body composition data.
mhm,
They got the aura ring data.
mhm.
They got what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah,
And genetics and blood.
yeah.
And they bring you in and say, you're as healthy as a horse.
They're gonna say
Or there's-
unlimited chicken sandwiches.
Yeah, exactly. It says, yeah, that's exactly
That's
it.
what you should get reported out. Just how
Yes.
many chicken sandwiches can I have this summer?
Mhm. But I'm conscious of it anyways, more than anything, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Hopefully it
absolutely.
comes back with a 50 chicken sandwiches. It'll
Yeah,
make it something,
exactly.
but-
And then you can show Renee that.
Mhm. I think there's some interesting things in there though that like you just don't know what's going on in your body. You think you do,
Mhm.
but then all of a sudden you hear people just have a
Mm.
heart attack, have cancer, have this, have that, right? So it's in our consciousness anyways, right? And as you get older, take my word, what it'll do is the old saying that you go to more funerals than weddings,
Mm.
right? You're passing through that window, right?
And I don't know what it is about it either, but it's like when something hurts, I don't want to go to the hospital. I don't want to go get this figured out.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just gonna keep going, right?
Mhm.
And then typically you only go when it's bad, like it's really bad, like you can't ignore it anymore.
Right.
Bad. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
I should go get this checked out.
Mhm.
And by then it's too late.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's like my finger. Like we were playing, it was 4 years ago. We were playing volleyball down at whatever not spike ball, but volleyball down this whatever crust net or whatever. And I put my head up the block and it squinched my little pinky. And then it was like, boy, that's sore and it's crooked, but whatever. And then about a year and a half later, I went to the doctor and I said, she goes, anything else? And I said, well, there is this, my pink, like it's bent. And she goes, what type of, walk you down to x-ray? Because it's a little Raymond hospital. They do it. I get in 2 minutes and so she goes, yeah, you broke it and it just reformed it. And I said, well, what can you? She goes, nothing now. You should have come in when it was there. Otherwise, I said, you can't re-break. And she goes, no, that's just the way you're going to be. And I said, sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
No problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then with Renee, she always goes, well, you should have got it done. And I'm like, well, whatever. I'm okay with it.
It's fine if it doesn't
Okay.
hurt, right?
It doesn't hurt. Well, I just figured that when you get to the end, again, to the rocking chair, it's, like, oh, I got this. I don't know if you watched the old Jaws movie, but there was where they're drinking, it's late at night there, and they start talking about all the cuts and war wounds and the sharks attacks and showing all the life war wounds. Like, I got this appendix out. I remember I was whippersnipping in my sandals and I whippersnipped my ankle and I've got like the lacerations from the thing, like just, you lived your life, that's all.
But it's true. It's like the scars are stories.
I think so.
And
Yeah.
when you look at those, then it reminds you of it. Because I have a
Yeah.
scar on my wrist, and it
Yeah.
was like something really stupid. It was like we were grad camping. This was grade 12.
Yeah.
And this guy just had a wiener stick that he was like heating up, and then he would put them on people. So he was being a jerk. So then,
Was that during Howard Hour? See how much pain you guys could take?
honestly,
Yeah.
So then he just came up to me and he put it on my wrist, and now I have this little scar
Yeah.
on my wrist.
But you remember it.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of
And then
way.
I just always remember high school. But then it's like I remember the hockey games and the
Yeah.
other times. I don't
Yeah.
remember, like, yeah, sure, that was the event, but it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, that actually pulls me back to the moment.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's
Hmm.
just life, right?
Mm-hmm.
The scars we carry, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Honestly, ties in really good because I've been reading the Yoga Sutras,
Okay.
and I
Yeah.
wanted to talk to you more
Yeah,
about the
for
Yoga
sure.
Sutras and
Yeah.
kind of what I'm learning, because what's really cool is it's all about human nature. Because even just the things that we were talking there, like scars or stories,
Yeah.
and even the scar on my wrist, okay, it's like I could perceive that of like, okay, that guy was being a jerk and he
Yeah.
did that to me.
Yeah.
Or it's I can remember the memories of being in high school, like I
Yeah.
just said, right?
Yeah.
So the Yoga Sutra, so how I got into it was I haven't been working out as much. So 2026, I said, okay, well, what do I got to put down so I can pick up other things?
Yep.
And I said, you know what? I think I could stay healthy if I say work out 2 to 3 times a week.
Yep.
That's it. I think I can stay really healthy, and then I can situate my life for movement, right? Like I
Yeah.
got the chin-up bar in my office.
Yeah.
I got a yoga mat at home. So I situate my life for movement. I don't have to spend as much time in the gym.
Yeah.
So that actually opens up my life for a lot more time. So I was like, okay, well, what's one thing that I want to kind of focus on this year? And it is more of like having the calm mind. Because
Yep.
recently too, I noticed was like the feeling of getting back on the treadmill. Where
Mhm.
I think we talked about, you shared the story in a previous episode about, I think you were in Hawaii and you went back and all the Sun Life people came in and it was like
Yeah.
absolute chaos.
Yeah, they're
right?
on the rat race. They just don't realize they're on the hamster wheel. It just until you separate yourself. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So when I think of that, I think of it as the treadmill, because even this first couple of weeks compared to Christmas break, coming back into work, it's like, okay, I feel the pace of the treadmill picking up
Mhm.
again. So it's how can I just be very conscious of like seeing the treadmill pick up in pace, but then know, okay, well, it's time to slow down, right?
Yeah.
It's like time to take more breaks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to recognize that sometimes, I think, when you're in it. But if you're conscious of it, that's incredible, right? Because then you can try to make some things that what is causing you to, and we were talking about the little aura or the whoop band or whatever, and I don't think sometimes you realize how amped up you are or how involved. But if you could see it from the outside looking in, then to your point, you could make some conscious decisions to say, well, why am I doing this? Or can I change the order of the stuff I do? Or maybe even how intense I get about, the thing that I'm working on when maybe it doesn't need that, right? So we get
Exactly. Yeah.
so ramped up.
So then what I'm putting in my life is, okay, I'm going to meditate some more and I'm going to just try to watch my thoughts more. So see what's coming into my brain. So this is where the Yoga Sutras came in, because I was like, okay, well, let's do more yoga, right?
Yep.
Because when we picture yoga, say we picture someone in yoga pants doing the
Yeah.
downward dog,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
That's what we picture.
Yeah.
So I was listening to a podcast and I thought, you know what? The origin of yoga is probably different. It's probably not what we kind of sell and advertise here. I'm like, it's probably different. So that thought ran through my head. And then a couple of weeks later, I was listening to a podcast and he was talking and he said, you know what, if you want to understand, he said, read the Yoga Sutras. And then that kind of popped that thought back into my brain. And I was like, yoga what? Yoga who?
Yeah.
Yoga Sutras?
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So then I ordered it on Amazon. And then, so what I learned, it was written 2,000 years ago. And what a sutra is, it's a thread. It's a thread of the barest meaning. So what it is, it's a bunch of these sentences with just the barest meaning of thought. And what I learned is the yoga that we're doing today, it's called Hatha yoga. So it's about like aligning your body and your breath and movement.
Yep.
But there's a bigger concept of yoga that kind of branched out from what we kind of advertise and see today. And that yoga is all about controlling your mind. And so when I read that, literally the introduction to this book was like literally that paragraph. And I
Wow.
was like,
Yeah.
a little bit mind blown, because I was like, wow, that sounds super cool. So what
Mhm.
is it?
Yep.
And then so as I kept reading, like I learned that pretty much in India and these different religions, you saw all these different religions come up. They kind of followed it back to like, what is true about human nature? And this is a question I'm going to ask you too, is like, is there truth in human nature? Because it's a big question, right? Because
Yeah.
what this book is saying, it's saying pretty much all people are very similar. Like we're kind of derived from the same place. And there's a bare truth about how humans can live. So it's saying that what we have to do is we have to be able to control our minds. And what that means is what we're talking about earlier, it's all about perception.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about when I see something, how do I perceive it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because there was a quote in the book that kind of hit me, and it was, people live in their own painful thoughts.
I think that to be, I believe that to be very accurate. Yeah.
Because you get to choose. You
Yeah.
get to choose the thoughts that come
Yeah.
into your mind. So when I'm thinking about me being on the treadmill, it's like, well, I'm choosing the thoughts of me being on the treadmill. Because when I was at home last night, just taking a second to catch my breath, sit down and look at my calendar with all these back-to-back meetings, what's happening is I'm just thinking about these back-to-back meetings, right? That's my perception. That's what I have to do tomorrow. But in reality, I'm just sitting at home, like on my yoga mat.
Yeah.
And if you look around, there's no chaos. There's
Yeah.
no nothing. It's just
Oh.
me sitting there.
Yeah. And again, your mind brings it in, right? When you sit down and think. And the other thing, I think inside there, if you really sit down and think about it, even if you thought about those meetings, like I'm stacked with meetings and we all put this pressure on ourselves where it could be like, I'm blessed to have all those meetings that have all these things. So it is. Going back to your thing, so I sit down and think about like Shakespeare, and you go back, 500-600 years ago, and all the plays and everything, and the themes of the plays, whether it's greed, whether it's all the way through, like whether it's killings, it's all these different things. They stand the test of time, meaning that the exact same thing you read in the paper, you see movies about you. So to your point about we're all the same, and we've all been the same, meaning that like what drives human nature, that behavior set hasn't changed in 2, 3, 4, 500, probably 500,000, 2,000, 5,000 years. So yeah, so I would believe that. I believe that concept that we're all the same for sure, because when they say history repeats itself, which we see it does, and we don't learn the lessons, but maybe there's no lesson to learn when things are driven by greed, fear, all those all the things that that are the roots of every story you hear. They never change. I don't care if it's if you put up a newspaper and said all these things, and then you said, did you hear about all these things, and you look and it was 50 years ago or 30 years ago in the newspaper, you'd go, well, nothing's changed. It's just the next generation, right? We just bring it on to the next generation. We just keep going, and it just doesn't change.
Yeah, because that was something that kind of, I would say, was more difficult for me to like wrap my mind around, is like, let's just say that's true, right? Like there's a truth of human nature.
For sure.
So then that would imply that there's a way to live where you would get the most, say, like out of your life, like the deepest purpose. And that's what these Yoga Sutras are exploring, is they're saying it's like 2,000 years ago, they actually don't know if it was a person, a group of people. They go by the name of Panjali. From my understanding, they're basically the Albert Einstein of the yogic science, is what they call it.
Yep.
And it's like they've basically distilled like the truth to how human nature is and how people should live.
Yep. In this world, we think to live that way. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah, because one of the concepts that I pulled out is they talked about there's pain or there's non-pain. So they don't say pain and pleasure.
Yeah.
They say you can either choose to do it like a painful way or a non-painful way.
Yep.
And that's where the quote came from. It's like people live in their own painful thoughts. Is like, how do you want to be able to kind of live your life? Because you can do it in a painful manner, right? Like you can go out there, you can be angry, you can put the sorrow on yourself. You could choose to do that. And that's what the perception is. So they're talking about how the mind basically is more of a tool that you have to learn how to control. So it's like identifying the thought patterns, which I think if you break a lot of this down and you look at like modern consulting or counseling, they do this. Like they kind of work through this process, because they talk about like your ego and impressions and who you are.
Yeah.
And what it is basically is like over time, like you've had these experiences in life when you're developing what create impressions on your brain. And then you live throughout these impressions. So when these things happen, these impressions come up and your mind reacts. But what they're saying is what you want to do is be able to identify those impressions on your brain, because those strong impressions make up your ego. So your ego is that thing that you hold really tightly, that you define yourself by. And if you can watch the thoughts come into your mind, watch those impressions, be able to distill them, understand why and what builds up your ego, then if you're able to perform that, and like this is years of work that they're talking about,
Yep.
then you can start quieting your mind.
Yeah.
So you can start putting your mind to the side, because then you can start listening to more of your intuition. You know, they call it in the book, they call it the knower. And it's like the knower is the person kind of behind the scenes, because you can sit there and you can observe your thoughts, and you can sit there and you can observe your body. But the knower is, or in this case, the observer is a thing kind of in the background that's kind of like in the moment, kind of dictating or seeing what's happening.
Yeah, I think that thought, like if everybody could get to that perfect state that you're talking about, then the need for the psychologist, I guess, would be next to none. But so it really, I think, speaks to the fact that most people can't even begin to get in anywhere near that state.
Yeah. Well, there was one sentence in the book that popped into my mind, because we talk about the concepts of under promising and over delivering.
Yeah.
Well, the sentence in the book was like, if you perform this, you will become the perfect harmonized human being. And I was like, okay, well, that's the opposite.
Yeah,
To
exactly.
me, that feels like an overpromise.
Yeah, exactly.
But one of the cool concepts is basically in the book they were talking about, like, it's human nature. Like pretty much everyone can accomplish this.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's this putting this thing on a pedestal saying like, here's this ultimate being. It's like, no, it's actually inside of everyone. It's just a matter of you bringing it out of yourself,
Right.
because it's inside of you. And the other part, when you're talking about, like when we're talking about perception, there's a concept inside of the book, it's called dualism, that comes to my mind. And it's really similar to when you talk about like, who is the master you serve? Like we're serving multiple masters. And like the easiest way for me to like relate to it is when I'm driving by Tim Hortons, right? Because I don't know if you noticed, they're building another Tim Hortons by Moxie's.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there's 100 Tim Hortons in
Oh,
Lethbridge
yeah,
by
they're
itself.
everywhere.
So you
Yeah.
see them all the time.
Yeah.
The most Canadian thing. So when I see it, a Tim Hortons sign, I'm like, ooh, coffee, ooh, green tea.
Yeah.
So what's happening in my mind is I'm picturing myself with a green tea. I'm picturing myself with a coffee. And then the dualism part is like, okay, now I'm also picturing myself without this thing. So I'm picturing myself driving by it, not getting a coffee, or going to Tim Hortons and getting a coffee. And then in my mind, what I'm doing is like, oh, Wes with a coffee is going to be happier. Let's
Harmony.
go.
You're going to have harmony.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be the perfect harmonized human being if I go get
Yeah,
that coffee.
exactly. Yeah, no doubt.
So then in my mind, I'm painting these two situations, just like if it's the celebration of life, or is it a mourning of life, or if it's like the scar on my arm. It's like I'm painting these two different perceptions of what it is.
Yeah.
And then I'm attaching myself emotionally to the West with the coffee.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh, that one. I should go to Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
But what it is, it's like the mind is in the background painting these two situations.
Yeah.
And if it's like, if you can identify that and you can detach from it, then it doesn't matter if you get the coffee or you don't get the coffee.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it shows you in my mind what's going on like all the time. Like so to me, it's as simple as pulling the lineup, don't pull in the lineup. But behind the scenes, there's this intricacy going on about weighing, should I, shouldn't I, and all this. So you can see that sometimes with people would be like to your point, if I would go in the lineup or I don't go in the lineup, functioning no difference. But if it is a difference, then you could see how much stuff that people, just to even operate, to how many times that war within the brain or all that intricacies, and even when sometimes when that wiring goes, I'm going to call it haywire, goes a little bit thing where they can't get out of that and they can't make a decision and they can't take a step forward, or they're forever mourning everything they do, every decision they make. Like, yeah, the brain is like these threads or these truths have been there and will be there and will be forever. And this idea that everybody, like conceptually, that everybody can overcome this and get to this harmony state and get to this thing, I guess I would say that's theoretical. I don't know if I would say it's practical, because if it was practical, then, like I said, you wouldn't need any self-help, psychology, all that kind of stuff, because we'd all be these perfect run machines. And history has proven the book that you read might not be the most popular book on earth compared to some other ones, right? That would more lead to more lack of harmony, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because speaking of the mind, how I've been thinking about my mind lately, like from reading this book, is like I'm almost thinking of it like a command that I can call. Think of it almost like something external, and you can decide what you put it on. So my mind, what I found, like just loves problems, and it's loves like if I put it on a problem, it'll just like pull it apart, dissect it, and I'll have fun doing it. So what I've been doing more is I've been saying, okay, can I just intentionally give the mind a problem, right? So in this case, it's even just something simple. It's like, okay, or a task. I have to make lunch in the morning. Okay, let's make lunch. So then the mind is just there, it's making lunch, right? So you're in it, you're making lunch, it's okay, and the next thing you're gonna do is grab the yogurt, put it on here, go grab those things. But you've just done this so many times, it's like you can sit back and then you can observe yourself making lunch, and you can just see like the mind is just going to work. And then I have harder problems, right? If I'm like building software, working on clients, trying to solve problems, it's like I'm intentionally it's almost like, think of it like a dog where I'm just like feeding it a piece of meat and I'm just like throwing it up for it. And I'm saying, all right, let's go, let's focus on this and solve this problem. And then after that, it's like you're in it and you're doing it. But then I can also say, okay, well, if it's like a dog, I'm saying like, okay, you know what, go lay down. I need a break. Go lay down. Like stop thinking of problems, right? Like sit, be quiet. It's like you could give it these commands. And that's what they talk about too in the sutras is mantras, right? Like I think a lot of people have heard of mantras before. It's like these things that you kind of continuously tell yourself. So one thing they talk about is it's think and then be. So mantras are actually another subset of yoga. And what it is, it's like I even noticed myself, even what I'm talking about right now, it's like if I want my mind to be more quiet, like I can say like calm, calm, calm. And what ends up happening if I just keep repeating that, and then my mind comes with another thought and I go, no, calm, calm. And I actually like find my mind thinking less thoughts and slowing down. And then that affects my whole body.
Yeah, no doubt. It's interesting when you describe that, because it almost describes it as an AI bot for you. That's just like in your world, like, right? It's like we need this bot to be able to do it. So you almost become you have your own bots. Okay, there's the sandwich making bot, and it's doing it, and you're behind there in command of it, but you're not really doing it. You're not in that moment. You're actually, you've
it's true, because it's like if I need to solve a problem, okay, well, what context do I have to feed to this AI?
Yeah, 100%.
It's like, okay, well, me as an autonomous person, I'll just go get that and then feed it to my brain, and then it'll go do the next thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because also, like, when you talk about that calm, I think about like sleep and sleep patterns. And there's like, for myself, sometimes when I, how you're trying to go to sleep, and then that the same thing you're thinking about just keeps going. You're trying to go, stay away. So they always talk about, count sheep or whatever. You have to do something. So then for me, I always thought of some place I've been. So I've been a million places, but there'd been places that it wasn't even so incredible of a place. I remember it was a fishing spot that I would pull the car up, I would hop out, I'd walk across a bridge, then I'd have to go down a hill, walk through this sort of forest or whatever, then I'd come to this opening and then couldn't wait to cast for the trout or whatever. So then what happened was that became my counting sheep. And so then what would happen is then that's what I use. And it's not the most fabulous place in the world, but it's just this one unique place. And so then what would happen is I would start to try to sleep. And then all of a sudden, this problem I'm thinking about, then I'd be like, so I'd be, okay, drive to the thing, okay, park, start walking across the bridge, problem comes in, oh, crap, I got to go back up and drive down the hill again. Like, and I keep doing it, which is the way of the calm, is to push that away so I can get to that peaceful place where I can just go to sleep. So and if I can't get to that end spot, then it's just the tug of war of sleep versus problem is going to override the sleep, right? It's just, but the idea of just continuing that same peaceful thought, right? And how we try to train our mind to say, that's my sleep spot. So if I can get through the steps, then I can sleep. But if I can't, then I got to restart it. And so it's calm. Okay, just but they're all calm, right? Same idea, right? So
because that's why I think the mind is here, right? I think the mind is here to think thoughts.
Yep.
So then the mind is going to do that at the maximum.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
So then in that case, it's like, okay, well, your brain's solving problems throughout the day. What's coming next? Just like I'm talking about kind of slowing down on the treadmill. It's like, yes, I'm going to think thoughts and we're going to do these things. But it's like when it gets out of control and it just starts spinning, it's how do you get it back into control? Because if you think of it more of a tool, like you're saying, it's like, oh, I actually found a really good pattern for me to tame my mind, tell it to go lay down. So then I can just sit here and be quiet as the observer or the knower that is kind of more in the background.
Yeah. So that dissecting that you're doing, the breaking down, the looking at it's quite an interesting journey. So quite an interesting book you read.
It is really cool because the other part where it talks about, which is where they talk about like the fundamentals of human nature.
Yeah.
So it's the concepts of being selfish or selfless.
Yeah.
So those are the two concepts that they talk about.
Selfless or selfish.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what they're talking about is to find more meaning in life where people are, say, happy, have more energy, like feel like they're a part of something bigger.
Yeah.
It's to act as if you're selfless.
Yeah.
So you're doing things for other people.
Yeah, for other people you're serving.
Yeah, you're not doing it for yourself.
Exactly.
Because when I think about, and it's a really simple concept in nature.
Yeah.
It's like what they talk about is like if you make other people happy, then yourself, if you're just surrounded by happy people, like you're going to be happy.
Created the environment, right? Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. But there's so many caveats inside of that, right? Because it also broke down people into kind of 4 big buckets. They said in the world, you can put people in any one of these buckets.
Yeah.
You have happy people.
Yeah.
You have sad people.
Yeah.
Virtuous people and wicked people.
Yeah.
So happy people, they say you should just be their friend.
Yeah.
Like just be their friend.
Yeah.
Sad people, you should have compassion for them.
Yeah.
Virtuous people, you should admire them because they have these great ethics in life.
Yeah.
And then wicked people, you should just avoid them.
Yeah.
Just stay out of their way.
Yeah.
If I said a sentence like, if I'm going to find more meaning in life by making other people more happy, it's like, which bucket of people am I, say, performing those actions for? Because if I'm performing those actions for those wicked people, well then, like, I'm not actually internally happy, right?
Yeah.
But if I surround myself by people who are generally happy people, and you're making those other people happy in your life, and they're doing it back to you, well, then you've created a beautiful environment. Yeah.
And what do you think of that 4 bucket? Do you think it, as you sort of analyze the people in your life?
I would say the wicked bucket is on point. I would say, like, hey, sometimes there's just some bad eggs. I don't think there's very many out there. Yeah. But you run across that, just avoid it. Move on, right? It's not worth trying to save. No. It's not worth trying to change these people. Just avoid these people, right? Yeah. They live in their perception. I would say the happy bucket, I would say, is also correct. Yep. Right? One of my new friends that I met kind of through the business, like, he falls into this bucket for sure. Like, every time I interact with him, he's just like a really genuine, happy person. I would say you also fall in that bucket too. Like, most times I interact with you, like, we're happy
for sure.
people, right? Like, I feel like we always go on roller coaster rides, but I would say 99% of the time we fall into the happy bucket, right? The sad bucket, I don't know if that is the right bucket from my experience. Like, I don't know if I've just ran into people that have been necessarily sad.
Yeah. And you define that like sort of like not not Eeyore type people, but just like, I mean, like I'm going to use the term constant mourning about everything. And it doesn't mean a death of a person. It just could mean that they're always on the negative side of everything. They look at that as that. So
That's how I see it.
yeah,
It's like if you say you have people who are optimists and
Yeah.
pessimistic,
Yeah.
maybe those people aren't like, they're not in the wicked bucket because
Right.
they have good intentions,
right,
but maybe they just see it from the more pessimistic viewpoint.
right.
Because if we define it like that, then yes, I can say that's a clear bucket that I
Yeah.
can see.
Yeah.
And then I think it is if I did apply more compassion to those areas, because I think right now I almost treat it a little bit more like the wicked bucket,
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, well, that's more to avoid.
Right.
But maybe in that case, it is seeing more of the true intentions.
Yeah.
And
And you
then-
can have empathy for the bucket, but it doesn't mean that you want to be in the bucket and hanging out with the bucket.
That's right.
It means, okay, I can see, and that empathy could be for the situation, the true situation, or it could be the fact that the empathy is for the person that they're just wired that way. They're just, or they're using our brain thing. They have not at peace with their mind. That's how they view a situation, right?
Yeah. And I think having compassion, because in nowhere in the sutras is like talking about trying to change any of the people inside of these buckets.
No, I think that's the thing I think that's what interferes with the happy bucket, is that if you sit down and think you need to change the wicked person, first of all, you don't, like, to your point, I don't think we come across a lot of them. And wicked sounds so like, we think about jail and murders and all that. Those are well defined. But I also think there's some people that maybe lack the opposite of the virtuous bucket, where their ethics make them look, they're so self-serving, they don't even realize that ethics is missing. So that to me is that bucket. And we interact with those people temporarily, and then that's sort of one and done. Once you push them into that one, that makes sense. But the interesting is that sad one's an interesting one, because I would say that would be the more people fall into that than the happy bucket.
Yeah, that's a good question. So let's talk about the virtuous bucket. And then from your perception, we should say, from the people that you've interacted in your life, what percentages do you think fall in each bucket?
Yeah, I would say that probably, just, like throwing one real quick, I would say the wicked bucket, I would say probably less than 10%, I would say, right? I would say that definitely for sure. The sad bucket, I would say, I'm going to go a high number. I'm going to go more like 60%, like a real high number, actually. And then I would argue that, so that's, if that was 70, then I would say it's probably 20% the happy, and then virtuous, maybe that other last 10% or whatever. So I'd say that, what's very interesting is that the wicked and virtuous, I think, would be an equal sort of group of whatever that is. If they're 5% in each, then that's it, or 10. And then, but I don't think the other one, the happy and the sad, are actually equal. I think it's actually disproportionate. That's what the experience I found. And because again, that broader scope of, and I view it as, they just can't get out of their way. They just, for whatever reason, if we want to cut off the wiring of the brain, the way we look at it, the way we look at a situation, that nothing's either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. They see it as bad, and the happy people would see it as good. And yet it's the same situation, right?
Yeah, I would say similar. I would say so. Yeah, because the virtuous, like, I'm thinking of virtuous people in my life, and like one of the people that come to mind is actually one of the developers we have. It's like I feel like I can just trust him to make the ethically right decision, and just like,
sure.
every kind of case in his life, and I just see him act on that.
Yeah.
But there's actually, when I'm thinking about that, there's not a ton of people like that.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Because there's a lot of gray in life, and you kind of have to decide what to do in the gray.
Yeah, 100%.
So I would say I would agree with the virtuous and the wicked buckets.
Yeah.
I think they are similar, because they're pretty much opposites, right? And they're extreme kind of, they're more outliers if it's like more of an average distribution curve.
Yeah.
And then, because the middle definitely has to be the sad and the happy buckets. And I would say I would overweight the sad bucket as well. Maybe the, like, it's not necessarily the woe is me, but it's like, yeah, I think it's the I stand in my own way more, like
Yeah.
how you described
Yeah.
it,
Mhm.
where it's like the happy bucket. If the happy bucket is like kind of like what no matter happens in life, I'm perceiving this as I can make it through it.
Yeah.
I'm going to grow from this and I'm going to
Yeah.
keep learning.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, that bucket I would say is probably half the size of the sad bucket.
Right. So if I said to you, if I threw 10 random people, okay, that I'd say 10 people that you know, and then I've just put just a simple question: do they energize you or suck the energy? What would that ratio be of 10?
For the way I've constructed my life, more of it is on the energy bucket now.
Yeah. They would
So
provide energy.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
I would say because I've been pretty sticky about relationships in my
Right.
life. Sven and I were going through our wedding list,
Yeah.
and I was like, what? I actually don't have that many people to invite here,
Right.
right? Unless I extend it out,
Right.
but it's like I kind of like I feel like I've built like a core
Right.
group that has given me energy. But if I
Right.
think back, and so
That's what I'm
say,
talking about. So
think
like,
back in
so
like
you're
high
thinking,
school,
yeah, but you're thinking about the bucket now that you've formed,
Yeah.
which is the happy bucket.
yeah,
And I'm saying if we just took 10 people that you came across,
yeah,
I would say the majority of them, I find, would just pull the energy because they're just, I would call it caught in their world. And they can't see it for what it is, to the point of everything's a problem, but when in fact everything's an opportunity to, like, what a blessing you have to be able to do the work we do, or to have the people in our lives and the situations. But people can't. It's like, not I think we think of Eeyore to the extreme, but it's just, you can just see that they struggle, to get out of their own way, and that's okay, and you can see it and be in sort of proximity to it. But I find I can't hang out there, otherwise it really it almost tries to pull me out of that other bucket. Like it just, yeah, like so.
because I have found that let's say interacting with that bucket, I feel like when I have really good energy, it usually lifts up other people inside of that bucket. But that's when it's like you have to be conscious of like where you're spending your energy, because if you spend your energy
Right.
there all the time,
Right.
then it's going to turn into the drain, like you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I would agree with you. And I would say that's where the compassion part, I think, really
Yeah.
plays a big role, because if
Yeah.
you're interacting and if you see that, I think it's not just to see that and say like, okay, well, that person's getting in their own way. See you later, Johnny. Like, I think it is to have like some compassion for that,
Yeah.
and be able to keep moving forward.
Well, that's the key, and those things don't necessarily go hand in hand. So what happens is that, so it's kind of like, I guess, just an analogy would be that you're walking, I don't care, you're in an airport, you're walking down the street somewhere, you're going along, and you see a homeless person. And you and I have probably done this lots, where we've stopped. So remember, we stop our progression to whatever, give money, give food, whatever. And I've done that lots, where I've stopped and we went to restaurants and had like all this extra food, and and we're out of town, and I'd say, yeah, box it up, and people look at me, what are you talking about? We're staying in a hotel. I'm like, no. And then we go for a walk, because I know we're going to walk by the people, and we give it to the people. Okay, so we stop. So it stops our progress because of that. We have the empathy for where they are. We try to do it, but we can't change that situation realistically. Dollars don't change it. It's probably the worst thing to give, because you don't know the drugs and alcohol or whatever the case. But we can't change that, because that change has to come from within them. But we can give them the time. But again, it's only a spot of time, and then we continue on. And so what happens is you can't hang out there. Otherwise, what happens, it's just, I find it pulls from that bucket. So there's a point of what I call normalcy of time that we can give to that, but you can't, I find personally, I'll just speak for myself, I can't live there, because it pulls so much. Right?
So then how do you balance that? So I hear what you're saying. How do you then balance it with the selfish versus selfless, right? So if, let's just take the sutras as true, right?
Yep.
And if the sutras are saying
Yeah.
that to be selfless is to say, is a truth of being a human, and like that's where you're going to find, say, deeper purpose.
Mm-hmm.
How do you then balance like the concept of like, yes, I can spend some time, but I have to move on, versus being selfless and say giving?
Yeah, and it's an interesting one because to me the point is that we could like the idea would be like, well, if since it can't help anybody, you should never stop, just keep going because it's pointless. Well, it's that balance, and that balance maybe isn't the best. But I do believe there's this thing that I like when people need you, in order to give that part of you, you have to be whole yourself. And so if we're always giving, giving, then there's nothing left. So it's a balance. For me, it's always that balancing act to say, need to be whole enough. And I don't view that as a selfish. I'm not saying it's, I need to be whole so I can continue to give that. And so it's a balancing act of, you're like a battery. It's like I need to recharge that battery because they're going to take from that battery, recharge, take, recharge, and take. And if the battery's low, there's nothing there. So it serves no purpose to empty your battery because so inside that. So yeah, so I mean,
That's
a
great point because
yeah.
the sutras do talk about that.
Yeah.
It's like to be selfish, to give more and be more selfless.
Right. That's the way I look at it. Right. So there's a time, place, but then there's also these situations for good or bad, and I don't like the homelessness as an example. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I didn't get the sense that 2,000 years ago, or maybe everybody was homeless. They just didn't have a home. But I think it's just it's more of a modern day problem where it's where I call it allocation of resources with one twist. The people's minds, I don't think like if I suspect that if I went on the street, I would argue virtually all of them are to do with the way they interact with the mind. And I don't care if they're an alcoholic, drug addict, I don't care if it came from trauma or whatever, like all that is an interaction of the mind and they get where they get. And then the weirdest part is that we think, like sitting there walking by, that they just need somebody to give them a helping hand, and that would be the chain that changes them. It's not the case. And it's not the case, as I have a daughter that's a police officer and a son-in-law that's a, EMS firefighter thing. And then when they go to the street, you think that you're trying to help them, but they don't want the help. That's their sad bucket, if you want to call it. That's where they live, and that's where they're comfortable to live. And we think, oh, pull them into the sunshine. That's bullshit. That's not where they want to be. That's why, again, statistically, I think if you said, if somebody's an alcoholic, I'm going to put him in a treatment center, the success rate, I believe, was very low. And the reason why is because you're trying to do it. So you're thinking, I'm doing an unselfish act, I'm going to help them. You're not helping them because they're not prepared to help. So really, it is a balancing act. And unfortunately, what happens sometimes is because of the fact that most people don't want to help, we assume that that's all the case. And there's a lot of people that it might be just a hand. So I don't have a great answer.
Well, it's
but
like
I do
what
have
we mentioned earlier. It's like none of those buckets did we say we're trying to change people or move people to
100%.
different buckets.
No,
It's like the buckets are what the buckets are.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is just to make sure that there isn't that if we're in a happy bucket, that nobody else can come. I like to believe that everybody in that, I believe the wicked person could go to virtuous. So I like to believe you can go from one bucket to the other, but that journey is your journey.
And it comes from within.
It has to, because you can't will it. Like, I mean, how many parents walked down and saw drug addicts, alcoholics, and loved their kids? If that was all that we needed, well, then the world wouldn't have a problem. But that isn't what's needed. Those people don't love themselves and or they can't get there from the mind composition to journey to a different bucket. And I don't mean like bullshit, like I'm happy when you're not, but to be in there, I find that I can't empty my battery on those, because the fact of the matter is that battery is being wasted because they don't want to change.
You have to be selfish with your peace.
I have to be selfish with my peace so that when we do come across the people that are looking to bridge, then we have stuff to give, right? So I can't be cynical enough to believe that nobody will come over, but I also have to be realistic to believe that the vast majority won't come over. There is 4 buckets that have stood the test of time. So that what you said, that was a 2,000-year-old book that you read. Well, and we just categorized really quickly 4 buckets in our life today, 2,000 years later. So So back to your original question, these threads of truth, I would believe those are true. They were true then, they're true now, and they'll be true 2,000 years. So is it, I guess the question, is it selfish to recognize that those buckets do exist? And it's just not to turn your back on somebody else. But there is a point where how many times do you go to the bucket or to the well where you think, well, if I could just take that sad person and bring them over, life would be good. No, it wouldn't be. It would be, actually, I think it's a selfish act, actually.
Well, yeah, that's where I think it's really easy to think being selfless means I'm going to pick that person off the street. I'm going to help them. I'll put them in my home. I'm giving.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, is it a selfish act where you're trying to say stoke that ego inside of yourself? And I think too, when I say selfless, I think the time frame that comes to mind, I think, and it's pretty typical, is immediately. Yeah. I'm being selfless immediately. Right. I'm going to go help someone right now.
Yeah.
When it's like, no, actually, what if that time frame was, the rest of your life?
Right.
It's like if I am, say, building the company, building up myself, learning these concepts, if I didn't spend that time, it's not like I can share the things that I've learned.
No, for sure.
And that's over a period of, say, like
100%.
now let's say the next 60 years.
Right.
So being selfless doesn't mean being selfless exactly in this moment.
Yeah.
It's like, how can you build yourself up to then be able to give more?
Continue to give. And to me, the selfish and selfless is to do also with, I want the world to see me giving. That's about selfish. That's about ego, my ego, versus saying, no, I'll just continue to do it and I give in my own way. I don't have to show the world. I can continue to give, and sometimes you can give. And sometimes you give by saying you can't give, like meaning that, like inside of there, you can actually say that really at the end of the day, like people aren't going to change. And that's okay. If they're happy in their bucket, the wicked person in their bucket, that's okay for them to be in the bucket. So it's not where I want to be, right? So it's just to make sure that you don't put a hard gate where people can't get through the bucket like that. But I've always believed that I've been open continually to people if they want to go on that journey. But it's their journey, it's not mine. Like I can't go on the journey. I can't pull them into another bucket because it's like a slingshot. It'll just shoot back. It serves no purpose. But our heart and our love and what we try to do for people, we think that that's helping them, when in fact it isn't, by slingshotting them. Empathy to me means that's where they sit, that's where they choose to sit. If they ever did truly want to do, then. But I think people confuse hey, if you gave me $50 here, I'm the homeless person, that will make the difference. But when we know that won't be the case, right? Or if we put them in a treatment center, we help them, right? And there's all these stories over time that just doesn't work. And it's 2,000 years later, and these buckets still there. So that tells you it hasn't worked, even with I would believe we're smarter, that we have more access to everything today. The buckets are just as defined as they were 2,000 years ago. I don't know. I think you got something in there that they're saying.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm excited about, to keep reading this book and then keep talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, the quote at the start that really stuck with me is people live in their own painful thoughts. But I think really what it is people live in their thoughts.
Yes.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And it's like, so if your brain is like a dog, it's like, what are you feeding it? What are you feeding it? How are you controlling it? Do you actually teaching it new tricks, or are you just letting it run wild?
100%.
Right? It's like, do you have those patterns? And then it's about noticing, can you categorize yourself in a bucket?
Yep.
And can you point to that, and can you be honest with yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's about saying, well, why is it that I identify with that bucket? Because of my actions.
Yep.
And then it's about notifying, seeing, and being able to say, okay, well, if these are the impressions on my brain that makes up my ego, it's like, if I can recognize those patterns, I can start to tame them.
Yep.
And then from there, I'm going to have more control over what I want to do.
100%. Yeah. No. And I think that's a worthwhile pursuit for all of us. If we can train the brain or train the mind, or think our way through it and look at things. That'd be a hell of a journey.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
Anchors up!
Time to set sail.